Now we're moving into section 5.3, which deals with human population growth. Individuals who study this, or the study of human populations, is demography. And remember back to section 5.1 where we talked about the different characteristics of populations. And those included birth rates, death rates, the age structure, and the last was the immigration and emigration. Those are what we use to help classify and characterize different populations, and those that study demography are going to use those to kind of explain things. So it might help predict why some countries have a higher growth rates while others move more slowly. It can give us an idea of maybe what happened historically, what were some of the turning points. So if we go back and we look at our kind of population growth, we might have had some things like this, something like that. And what we're going to look at is key kind of turning points. What might have been the reasons for this? So we go back to anything that might have limited population growth. So something like this. What could have limited the population growth? Well, if there was maybe some type of plague that happened. So the bubonic plague, something like that. And remember, that type of limiting factor was density dependent. So the population had to get to a certain level. So we might have seen it at other levels when it got to that point, but due to technology and increases in human knowledge and medicine and things like that, some of those things that were density dependent before, we've been able to combat, and they are not as density dependent now, per se. Other things, maybe turning point in, right here, why is it going up? Oh, increases in agriculture technology, that type of thing. Something might have kind of jump-started the human population growth. So these are what demographers are going to really study and kind of analyze and look at. So one of the things that we're going to look at for this class is analyzing, okay, so how do different countries and populations right now, how can we use some of that age structure to explain and predict what might be happening with these countries? Alright, so how can we use age structure to really give an idea of what's going on with that population, kind of explain it too? So I have two examples here, and I apologize that the numbers didn't come up like they should be on your slide or on the PowerPoint. What this is really looking at is two different populations. So we have France and India, and quite a big difference in what their populations kind of look at, if we look at here. So France, again, has, a little bit variations in its curve, and India is pretty much, in India right now, the majority of individuals are going to be younger. So this is the age of the population, so we notice anywhere, the ages between 50 and 55, pretty small in India, a little bit bigger in France. France, again, does have quite a few new people, but if we were to look at these curves, we would anticipate that India is going to see a pretty big growth spurt here soon as these younger individuals become older and start reproducing, that type of thing. So these are considered age structure diagrams, and it really gives us a profile of what's going on in the population and what we'd be looking at. This would help anticipate different countries, what kind of medical needs are there going to be, what types of government aid is going to be required. In something like India, currently right now we think of the United States and our nursing homes and assisted livings and that type of thing. And granted, there's a ton of cultural issues regarding this and whatnot, but looking at, where as these individuals get older, where are they going to be? How are they going to need maybe different medical assistance than some of the younger ones? So oftentimes by looking at this and studying demography, cities and governments and whatnot can kind of plan for the future and what their country is going to look at. This can also help us determine, and I am going to shrink this just a little bit, but this is going to help us with understand demographic transition. So demographic. Transition. This is another vocabulary word that I would suggest that you kind of take down. So this has to do with kind of explaining different reasons for populations like India or France. So there's going to be some time where possibly India might start to look like France. And this would be considered what we consider a demographic transition, which is a dramatic change in birth and death rates, which are going to influence the population. So India right now, high birth rate, possibly high death rate, kind of hard to tell from here, but you have a large number of a younger population, versus you go to France, who might not have as high of a birth rate and possibly not as high of a death rate. But what you need to know for demographic transitions is this is kind of the tipping point, which is they're going to be a dramatic change in birth and death rates. So this ends the chapter, and in class we're going to talk a little bit more about future population trends and maybe why do some of these populations go through demographic transitions and others may not.